Good afternoon. Today we're going to get into the 19th chapter of the Gospel of Luke in our Advent journey. In this story, we start out in Jericho and we wind up in Jerusalem by the end of the chapter. And at the beginning in Jericho, we have the famous story of little wee Zacchaeus. He's a short man, and he climbs into a sycamore tree, to see Jesus when he comes by because he was so short he couldn't see him in the crowd. It's been the song lyrics have been inspired by this story for many a song taught in Sunday school. But it is most importantly, I think, a story in the pattern we have seen before of Jesus offering hospitality and invitation and extending the promises of the kingdom of God to people that were considered outsiders. Even though Zacchaeus was rich, he was a tax collector and was basically a traitor to the Jewish people, to the Romans, but Jesus accepts him and brings him into the fold nonetheless. So it is yet another story of Jesus opening the kingdom to a wider and wider audience. Then there's a parable about a ruler who's apparently quite vicious, who leaves some money in the hands of his slaves while he's out of town and tells them to come make some more money with it. It's a very, very odd parable, and I don't really know what to do with it. So I'm just going to skip it and go on to the triumphal entry of Jesus into Jerusalem. It's a story we've all probably heard before, but Jesus has his disciples borrow a donkey from someone, and he sits on it, and then he rides in, and the crowds gather, and they wave palm branches, and they shout and say, "Blessed is the King who comes in the name of the Lord, peace in heaven and glory in the highest heaven." Now, at first glance, we've heard this story so much, we may not see the kind of the edginess to it, but really it's kind of a farce. It's almost comical. They're greeting him as a king. Blessed is the King who comes in the name of the Lord. But Jesus is riding in on a donkey, not a military steed, not a powerful war horse, but a donkey. And it's not even his own donkey. He had to borrow it. He had to borrow an ass in order to ride into town. And it's a comic farce of the powers. The Romans would have rode into Jerusalem in great procession with all their armor and fancy clothes and on powerful war horses as a symbol of power and control. And Jesus makes fun of it. He's poking fun of it by coming in this way. That, of course, gets the Pharisees nervous because they don't want the Romans to destroy the city. And they tell Jesus and the other disciples to stop shouting. And they say if they were silent, the very stones would shout. But when they come to the city, Jesus gives this ominous warning that and laments over Jerusalem and saying that someday it will be destroyed. And we can remember that the Gospel of Luke was probably written down around 70 A.D. when Jerusalem was in fact destroyed by the Romans. The second temple destroyed, and there's never been a temple built there again. So then he goes into the temple and he clears out the money changers and things like that and begins teaching and preaching there. And we end rather ominously, and it says, "The chief priests and the scribes and the leaders of the people kept looking for a way to kill him, but they did not find anything they could do, for all the people were spellbound by what he heard." That is foreshadowing of what we're going to get into beginning tomorrow. When we get into the 20th chapter, through the end of the book, we'll be moving into the passion narrative of Jesus. I hope you have a grace-filled and gracious day, and I look forward to talking to you tomorrow. I'll post something tomorrow afternoon on the 20th chapter of the Gospel of Luke. God's peace.